podcast for Tuesday, the 8th of September. I am joined as always by Sergeant Theo Van Zyl to discuss the hottest stories surrounding the footballing world.
Hello, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here, and without further ado, let us commence this podcast.
Indeed, in today's edition of the Football Podcast, we will be covering everything from transfers to the suspension of some national team players. Theo, if you care to start with Everton's signings, take it away.
I will, and the news Everton fans have been waiting for. We've been covering it for the last two podcasts, I believe, and it's that it's ranging to about a £70 million midfield spending spree, ranging from James Rodriguez, Alan, and Abdoulaye Doucouré from Watford, all ranging between 20 to 25 million pounds. The most expensive being Alan at 25, and James Rodriguez and Doucouré, both valued at 22 million, is what we're hearing. So this is actually big news for Everton. A new midfield, and this could actually really boost their shots at a potential 8th place, 7th place, challenging the likes of Wolves, Sheffield United. So really excited for the upcoming season, given the signings.
Yeah, I mean, that midfield is of great quality. Just before we started, I was mentioning to Theo that James Rodriguez for 22 million back in 2014 when he was the golden boy of the World Cup. No one would have expected for him to be on his way to Everton. It's such a low price tag, but how things have changed for him. Hopefully he can pick up his form in the Premier League and make use of his last couple of years at his world-class level. That takes us on to another Premier League side who overperformed this season. Sheffield United has signed Ethan Ampadu on a season-long loan. What do you think of this, Theo?
Yeah, Ethan Ampadu, who spent a loan spell at RB Leipzig, moderately successful there. He's a very good Welsh prospect for Chelsea. Could be a player for the future. Clearly not in Frank Lampard's plans at the moment. May come in. Thiago Silva may pass on the baton to him after he goes, perhaps after 1 or 2 seasons at Stamford Bridge. I think Thiago Silva will be important in terms of experience, and Ampadu can learn a lot from him if and when he comes back on a permanent basis rather than going out on loans consistently, like many young Chelsea players. But I think this is a good one for Ethan Ampadu. See how he can do in the Premier League on a permanent basis. So I think this is taking it to the next level. Shows that he's growing a lot. So I'm excited for him.
Yep. And speaking of Chelsea players, finally, after all this time, all this talking, all this build-up, Kai Havertz has finally signed for Chelsea. It was actually a lower price tag than expected, with the initial payment being £75.8 million, according to our sources, though there will be a further £12 million of incentive add-ons. I think that's actually quite a low price tag considering they were asking £90 million for him. They came in a bit short, but at the end of the day, we have to remember that many clubs are struggling financially in this period, and that they will take as much as they can get and not try and ask for too much. What do you think of this, Theo?
Yeah, Kai Havertz finally signs for Chelsea. Really, really big stuff. Again, he'll really boost that midfield. Frank Lampard has been addressing issues at the club ever since he took on the reins from Maurizio Sarri, who was moderately successful but clearly wanted to go back to Juventus. Under Sarri, Chelsea were struggling for goals. Their defense was relatively solid, which merited a 3rd place finish. However, obviously, with the loss of Eden Hazard, they had to address that perhaps long term and they have, with the addition of the players out on loan: Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount, Cam Hudson-Odoi, Christian Pulisic, all who have been very, very successful in their first season, especially the likes of Mason Mount, Christian Pulisic, Abraham, all really getting in the action. Abraham more of in the first season, Pulisic more in the second half of the season. But, Kai Havertz will really push them to greater heights. I think definitely a more developed young player, and we've seen his talent in the Bundesliga, and I think just him in there with Werner, Ziyech, they can provide a little bit more experience despite their youth. So I think Chelsea, the future is looking very, very exciting as well as the short term, which is a balance which is hard to get, but Frank Lampard has done brilliantly in this transfer window, and all credit to him there.
Yep. And we stay in the Premier League again. This is quite a Premier League heavy podcast in terms of transfers. Aston Villa signed Matty Cash for £15 million and also agreed a £28 million fee for Ollie Robinson. Theo, I think these are quite big numbers, big transfer fees for a club that was very close to being relegated. They seem to have quite a lot of disposable income here. What do you think of this?
Yeah, quite interesting here because I actually don't know where this money is coming from. I'm not going to say much more than that. Perhaps this is just disposable income from wherever. I don't know who they sold. Definitely not Jack Grealish. He appears to be staying at the club, which is going to be huge for them. As well as these potential signings, Matty Cash is confirmed. He was very key for Nottingham Forest's playoff push. So he was absolutely rock solid in that right back position. And I think he'll be great. I think Premier League is a big step up. He definitely would have stayed with Nottingham Forest had they made it to the Premier League. They haven't, and he's gone to Aston Villa. Good move for him. I think he'll really help Aston Villa stay in the top flight despite our predictions, with us saying they'll finish bottom. But, we might have to change our minds in January. You never know. We'll have to see what impact he'll have, as well as potentially Ollie Robinson. Aston Villa have agreed a £28 million fee, which is also a club record for them. Big stuff. Ollie Robinson was an amazing striker last season for Brentford, scoring numerous goals, I think over 20. So, alongside Ben Rama, who's been linked to Chelsea but appears to be staying at Brentford. Really, really big player for them. And I think if he seals an Aston Villa move, he'll be absolutely huge for them because their current strikers, Wesley, Samatta, clearly are not up to the standards of the Premier League, more championship players, if I don't say myself. Adam, take us on to England squad news.
Well, as we mentioned in our introduction, we will not only be covering transfers. Actually, Phil Foden and Mason Greenwood, two of the young starlets who both featured in their first international competitive game for the senior team against Iceland, I believe, have both been dropped and sent home from the England camp in a naive act, according to Gareth Southgate, involving two females. We won't talk too much about this subject as it can be quite explicit for some of our listeners, but I think that yes, they are young, as Gareth Southgate mentioned, but they are role models for many young children, and they have to carry the weight of that on their shoulders and need to understand that they have to be a bit more mature. And they are 18 and 20 respectively. Sorry, I do believe Mason Greenwood is 18 and Phil Foden is 20, but regardless of the age, they should be acting a bit more maturely, if I don't say so myself. Theo, what do you think?
Yeah, like Gareth Southgate says, very naive. They knew the protocols when they went into the isolation bubble with England, playing against Iceland, won that match. Really exciting stuff for them to get their first caps, and then they threw it all away two very young, promising players, both from different sides of Manchester, just simply not setting the right example. Like we said, we're not going to go much into the details. Nothing's been truly confirmed, but these are rumors. But like we said, this is not what we want to hear from two very promising players.
Yup. And we move on to Lionel Messi. He has decided to stay. It has been confirmed that he will stay at Barcelona for at least another season, despite a relatively weak offer from Manchester City. They were offering, I do believe it was less than £100 million, and it just wasn't good enough. Like we said, we were thinking that this may be a possibility that they will just keep hold of him with the introduction of a new manager. They will try and keep hold of him for another season. They've actually done really well to convince him to do so. He's been patient, if you will, with Barcelona. He had an interview with Goal recently in which he said that the money he's being paid doesn't really matter. He's only really stayed at Barcelona for his love of the club, because he could have easily gone elsewhere for double the money even, which as you can imagine is a huge amount. But it was his love of the club that kept him at Barcelona, and so it could be a sticky situation in the next season or a bit more than that. What do you think of this situation with Messi, Theo?
Yeah, Lionel Messi obviously sent in a transfer request to the very unpopular Bartomeu, who is set to leave in March when Victor Font is going to challenge his position. Obviously, he could stay, but not what we're covering right now. We're here to talk about Lionel Messi. And very interesting news here. We obviously thought he was on his way to Man City, which would have been a huge move for Pep Guardiola, obviously reuniting with the player he had in about 2012, 2011. Take the ball, pass the ball, that's his motto. And Messi was the center of that. And I think if they reunited, that would have been very, very deadly. He would have been at the forefront of that deadly Manchester City attack and the way they play their football. So hard to get the ball off them, and let alone keep them out of the goals. I mean, I think it'd just be such a formidable attack. One of the best in the world, if not the best in the world. So, I mean, they would have been Champions League challengers. But Messi has said himself he's staying at Barcelona, and a very weak offer from Man City is not likely to change his opinion. So that's the latest on Messi there.
Yep, and our last transfer story is that Sancho last summer was already linked away from Borussia Dortmund. Manchester United have been knocking at the door, very close to walking and slamming right through it even, but they have just been held at bay. A couple of weeks ago, £120 million was asked for. Borussia Dortmund, unlike Bayern Leverkusen, will be taking no less than that for their starlet. They are denying any swap deals. They want £120 million up front in cash. They just want the full sum of money with no exceptions or conditions. And especially during this whole COVID pandemic, that has been very hard to amount that amount of money, even for a club as rich as Manchester United. So the Sancho move remains unlikely this season. This transfer window. Maybe next transfer window, but I'm sure that there will be other European giants knocking on Borussia Dortmund's door. What do you think of this final transfer deal?
Yeah, actually, at one stage in June, May, he was destined to join Chelsea. How times have changed since then. Manchester United seemed the front runners and they have been for a very, very long time. Similar to the Kai Havertz saga, it's just been going on for so long. And I've been saying this with Adam for a long time. The longer it goes on, the more the more the rumors come, the more you seem it's likely. But then the longer and longer it goes on, the less it seems it's likely, because clearly it's quite visible that an agreement can't be reached, and clearly the valuation between the two clubs are very far apart. Can they do what Chelsea did with Havertz? Can they narrow that price tag down? Can they get it down, like, say, 90 million? But yeah, they're asking for upwards of 100 million, Dortmund, and Sancho is set to stay. So, unfortunately, it doesn't appear as though Sancho will be joining Manchester United. But we'll keep tabs on this transfer story, because you never know with the transfer window, and it's going on until October 5th. So you can expect the unexpected. So, yeah, which concludes our podcast. But before we go, we will remind you that the Premier League is back on Saturday and on Monday. So, really exciting stuff there. Some great matches, and we can't wait to see the Premier League back in action with all the new exciting stars in the Premier League. Adam, final words?
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Before you do go, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Turn on the notifications bell. And thank you for your support. We are fast approaching 1,000 views, which for a small channel like ours is a lot. We greatly appreciate your support. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye for me, and bye-bye, guys. Thank you.